All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills. I'm Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Sal Maiorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. And once again, former Bills offensive lineman Jerry Ostroski. This is Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. Jerry, nice to see you again after covering you for so many years, and you've been a friend of the show, a couple of appearances with us last season. And it's always good to get a former player who's so into it now from a media perspective and really understands all aspects, especially when you analyze something as difficult to analyze as the draft with so many kind of moving targets. What's your sense, if the Bills stay at 26, of what they're going to do?
You know, I've been thinking about this. I'm trying to figure out where the value is at 26, and I think there is value. I actually think the Bills are going to be in a pretty interesting situation that they're going to have a couple players there that they got rated pretty highly on their board, I believe, that'll be sitting there at 26. They're going to have to make a decision. Do I stick and pick one of those? And maybe, just maybe, they're not quite the guys that we need at this present moment, but the value's so high I can't pass it up? Or do I go ahead and trade out of that spot and go to the second round and try to acquire more picks and get a second-round pick? Because I do believe, especially like, say, edge defender, okay? I think there is a ton of those guys that the Bills can get in the second, third, even fourth round. There's guys like Malachi Lawrence that I think has been going up boards, but I still think he's a second at the earliest, maybe third-round type talent out of UCF, guys like that. So if you want to go ahead and roll the dice, I think you can trade back and acquire some more picks and still get what you need in the second round. But, what happens if a Casey Concepcion's sitting there at 26? What happens if the wide receiver from Arizona State's the one that falls because, somebody goes ahead and picks Casey earlier and they don't like the Tyson, I think his name is. They don't like the injury history there, so Jordan Tyson falls, okay? Your nose tackle's sitting there like the McDonald kid from Oklahoma or Ohio State. So I think there's a lot of guys that could be sitting there. Are they guys, though, that you pick at 26? I think that's going to be the point that's going to be interesting and a big discussion point.
Jerry, I have had more trouble trying to figure out who to profile that could be a Bills pick for this draft for several reasons. First of all, the obvious one, that it's a new defense, and we don't really know. I mean, we had a pretty good idea which way McDermott and Babbage and the defensive guys, what they liked in a player, and you could kind of figure guys who would be good fits for the Bills. With this new group and a new scheme, I really have not been able to hone in what they might be interested in, because quite frankly, I'm not quite sure where they're going to use the players currently on the roster and what roles they're going to be in. So they have to, fill in at other spots. So that's the first reason. And then when he got rid of the second round pick in the DJ Moore trade, that really threw me for a loop, because now you're trying to figure out who would be a good value at 26, knowing that you may not have a pick till number 91. Like, you can't fall back on the second round pick and get two needs filled. It's really a hard draft to pinpoint what they're thinking about here. I think the trade down scenario would be ideal for the Bills, but I put this to you, Jerry. The issue is, who's going to trade up? Who do you get to trade up? Because normally you're trading up for a quarterback. There's only going to be two quarterbacks taken in that first round. I'm not quite sure what team would want to trade back into the first round to get somebody. The one scenario that everyone's kind of aware of would be the dream scenario if Ty Simpson were to fall all the way to the Bills pick at 20, meaning he gets past the Jets, the Browns, the Steelers are a possibility. He gets past all those teams, and the Cardinals want to take their second pick of the second round and go up to get him. And Buffalo is the place they do it. That's the dream scenario as far as I'm concerned, and you pick up a pick later. Do you think first of all, is Simpson even possible to fall that far? And do you think the Cardinals would do that with the Bills?
I don't think any of the quarterbacks are worthy of first-round picks, to be honest with you. I'm not a Mendoza fan. I don't think Mendoza's – I get it, he's the number one overall pick, but you tell me, you can sit the message out there all you want about we don't like to start young quarterbacks. That's why we brought Kirk Cousins in, but the number one overall pick and you're going to sit him on the bench, it's kind of interesting. It says a lot to me, but I think Sal, it's going to go the opposite way. I think some somebody's going to panic early and take Ty Simpson, whether it be Pittsburgh,
Really?
whether the Jets make another crazy move and do it. I think somebody's going to panic early, maybe even trade up or whatever to get him. So I think the biggest thing is, like we talked about earlier, 26 to me is we're going to be sitting there. Is there actually a trade? The big questions. Is there actually a trade partner there? And maybe if Simpson falls, maybe it is Arizona. You know, that would be the dream scenario. But like you said, no second-round pick to take a top player that maybe is in a need position and then have to wait, 90-some picks or whatever, that's a very big stretch. Like, that's a big stretch. So I like you. I mean, I think for the longest time I felt that the trade back thing, A, made the most sense, and B, was historically what Bean likes to do. Because anytime he gives something up, he chases to get it back.
Mm-hmm.
So that always has made the most sense to me. You know, and when you pay your quarterback the money you pay him, it's hard to pick a lot of first-round picks, right? I mean, at least that's what they tell me. But so if you got a second-round pick, it'd be cheaper. I'm being, facetious, but I just I think that there's going to be a lot of stuff there it's going to stress it out a little bit. I really do. I think.
Let me ask you this, because the other scenario, and it wouldn't be a popular one with Bills fans, but if they were to pull off a trade back into the second round and went deeper into the second round, like people all want that in that first 5 or 6 picks of the second round. Is this draft the kind of draft, especially at edge rusher and linebacker, which I think are pretty clear needs? Is it good enough of a draft where if the Bills need to recoup an extra pick, they could fire it back into the middle to late part of the second round, meaning they're not making a pick for 50 or 60 picks?
Right.
Is it worth it for the Bills to do that because of the depth of edge rusher and linebacker?
I think you try to get in at least the middle part of the second round. I don't think you want to go into the later half of the second round. I don't think you have to be in the top 4 or 5 picks to get a good one. I mean, there's a lot of different players out there that are really interesting that you look at. I mean, who knows if Cassius Howe might not even slip to number 2, right? So there's a lot of these question marks. All these ends, Mesidor's too old, right? He's 25. He's too old. He may slip. Cassius Howe's got short arms. He's short levered. He doesn't have a power game, doesn't play the run. He may slip, right? You've got guys like R. Mason Thomas, doesn't have a pass rush portfolio, needs to learn more pass rush moves. You got him sitting there that's probably going to be in that spot. Malachi Lawrence, who hasn't quite reached his potential, so there's all kinds of guys. And then if you look for a guy like, say this, you look for Jashawn Barham from Michigan, who actually played inside backer and then went back outside and rushed at end as well, because everybody's trying to find the next Micah Parsons. And he's 6'3", 243. Now, if you get him, you got an inside linebacker that could also rush. He killed 2 birds with 1 stone, and he's probably available, like you said, later on in the second round, maybe even the third. So it's a huge roll of the dice. Me personally, I want to find it really interesting to see if those players like a Casey Concepcion or whatever there. And me also too, I've been beating the table. I don't think they need to neglect offensive line, man, because this offensive line could change like that.
Right.
You lost David Edwards. You got a journeyman or a guy that's been on the roster that they hardly paid to take the left guard spot. You did solidify your center coming back. If Torrance leaves, what happens if last year's Deion Dawkins was a precursor of what we're getting ready to see, that he's starting to decline? Spencer Brown's back as a time bomb at any moment. I mean, it's always been that way. It's just he's that guy. All of a sudden, you've gone from one of the best lines in the league to dire straits. You better make sure you load up with talent at that place as well, at that spot.
All right, so that's interesting.
This is interesting. Hold on, this is interesting. I want to ask him this because they signed Cushenberry, who we all look at as great backup for Connor McGovern. You did both. You played guard and you played center. How difficult would it be? Because they've signed Corbett, who we think would be the left guard, the starting left guard, because I don't really think Alec Anderson's the guy. But what about Cushenberry? Is it possible? He's never played a snap of guard in his career in the NFL, probably not even in college. Is it possible, Jerry, that he could move and compete at left guard? Is maybe that why they signed Cushenberry? Because they're invested in McGovern. He's their guy at center.
I think Cushenberry might have been maybe a little bit of a favor or just a vet guy there, because I think maybe Cushenberry was the answer if Connor McGovern did not come back.
McGovern's gone. Right.
He's the guy, and they kind of already had him talked up, and maybe they're not high on Cedric Van Pran Granger. We know that Van Pran Granger was a guy that McDermott liked a lot. That former captain for Georgia, whatever. I know he has some length issues, but maybe they feel they got better there. Nothing's impossible, Sal. I mean, yeah, that could happen. He could learn to play guard, but I would think that's probably not likely. I think the biggest thing with Corbett is, look at him. He makes, I said this the other day on one of the shows, he makes Bradley Chubb look like Cal Ripken Jr. I mean, as far as availability, right? I mean, he has not been very available except for, I think, 3 seasons in his career. So you got to worry about that as well. So I keep going to it. Everybody says that you can just go get anybody to play the line. I'm like, okay, go get anybody and tell me about it. And that 26 spot and where they're going to be, there's going to be some talented people there at that position on the interior line. And maybe you do that, but I doubt it. I think that's something they'll look at later, but they really need to make sure they address the O-line at some point in this draft.
All right. So I think you've done, as you usually do, a very good job of outlining sort of the dilemma that general managers and scouting staffs face with regard to the draft, because they'll tell you, at the pre-draft luncheon with the media, best player available, whatever. And that's true I've always believed to an extent, but that's within the realm of need, right? And that's a balancing act. So I want to approach this next question from a fan's perspective, and you've alluded to this earlier here in this podcast, but to what extent does the trade for DJ Moore, given what you think he brings to this offense, dictate the need to draft another receiver in this draft? And then based on that, you go from that, because I mean, a lot of fans still think receiver,
right?
Because Moore does have some limitations. Where do you stand on that?
I think that it's got to be the right one, because I think they've got enough. With DJ Moore, they got enough to get by. They're better than they were last year. Okay, they do have some guys injured and things like that, but they are better than last year. I think conceptually, it has to be the right guy. And we look at receivers right now. That's why everybody keeps going to Casey Concepcion. He's going to stretch the field. He's going to win in that deep third of the route tree and all that. And he brings something to the team that we don't have. And I think that's the biggest deal. No matter what you do at receiver, and I think really it's maybe not even the fact that we haven't picked receivers in the first round. It's his refusal to pick them in the second, third, or fourth as well. I think that's probably as big as anything, because you look at this draft, there's a lot of receivers in that third, fourth round area. And I think this draft in general is strong in the middle rounds that could help this team. A guy like Hurst from Georgia State.
Yeah,
I like stretch the field and get down there. I love Bryce Lance. I love Bryce Lance. I'm an FCS guy, always have been. My son coaches offensive line at UNI, Northern Iowa, where Spencer Brown went to school. And I think FCS players are great. If you look at Bean's draft history with FCS guys, he's picked 4 of them, and he's hit big on all 4 of them. 3 of them were wagons: Spencer Brown, Taron Johnson, Christian Benford. Okay, 3 FCS guys that are vital as far as this franchise goes. So I love Bryce Lance, a guy that does all those things. So I don't think it's necessarily just go get another wideout. They've got to fit a specific need, because we've got kind of that short intermediate thing figured out. Get me a stressor, a guy that maybe you're not getting the ball 8, 10, 12 times to a game. You get him to him 2 or 3, but it's 30+ yards downfield and he's hitting home runs. That's what I think, helps us. And in the instance of Concepcion, a really good return man as well.
Yeah. I've been saying this everywhere, radio, written about it. I probably said it on this podcast. To me, if they're going to pick a receiver in the first round, the other move, Jerry, has to be they're trading Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
They're going to get whatever they can for him and just get him off the roster. Because if you pick a receiver, if you use a first-round pick on a receiver, you got a lot of receivers in that room. They're not all going to be able to play. What is Keon bringing to you? That would be, if you're going to pick a receiver in the first round, just flip them out and get whatever you can from Keon. Do you have any merit in that, if that's what they can do? Would you be on board with that?
Well, who do you believe, Sal? Do you believe the head coach that says this is the best thing that's ever happened to Keon Coleman and I'm not giving up on him?
I know.
Or do you look at the other side of it, of the guy that's kind of a malcontent, that's had issues with being late to meetings and things like that? I think Keon's got a very, very unique skill set. I really do. How is he being utilized? Is it being utilized in the best way for him to be successful? I think that probably Keon's a big slot. That's probably what he is. But you're gonna have to take the other guy off the field, and are you willing to do that? I think it's a big prove it year for a lot of players on this roster. For instance, I think Deion Dawkins not getting a contract redo, as far as push the money and that whole thing like we do every year, and all of that with a lot of players do with Josh. That not happening with him, I think is a tell. I think it's a prove it year. I think it's a prove it year for Keon. I think it's a prove it off season for Keon. If he comes in and works his tail end off and shows development, I think that they probably keep him around. If he comes in over these OTAs and's not doing what he needs to do and isn't progressing, maybe June 1st you see him get moved. I think this is a very fluid roster throughout the offseason right now. I think especially after June 1st, you can see Bean make some moves because of the cap considerations. But yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere, Keon. I think the head coach has said too many things for that to happen. But I do sit back like you and wonder, it's not even really just development. It's like, where does he fit? What are we going to do with him?
Yeah. You know what?
I mean, I wondered if you could put 30, 40 pounds on him and let him rush the quarterback. I wondered about that, but I got laughed at on that idea. But
since you brought it up, I want to get your take on this because we've got you on the show. Deion Dawkins, look, he's been a great player for the Bills. I did not think he had a particularly good. Now, there are some metrics that say he was still very good in pass protection. The Bills obviously ran the ball well. Give me your honest evaluation of 2025 Deion Dawkins. What did you think? Because I didn't think he had a Deion Dawkins type year. Give me your thought.
Deion Dawkins is still like that call on the putt when Tiger makes that putt on 17, when you hear that better than most. Yeah. Deion is still better than most even this year. And I think that the thing was, it was so glaring because he didn't have the year that we've known from Deion for quite some time. Deion's at a crossroads right now in his career because he's a little bit older. And I went through it, and all older players go through this. I've talked about this before. You hit a stage where all of a sudden it becomes hard, especially when you're a big man. And Deion is a big man. It's hard on you. It's hard to keep your weight down. It just is. There comes a point in time where
I know
it's hard to do it, right? Right. And I think Deion got a little heavy this year. I really do, and I think that was a big part of. And here's the thing: is linemen, we can act hard, we can do all these different things. We're all the same. We're real good guys inside. We're soft guys. And when Deion said as soon as the season was over, he made the comment about we've already got our plan, and I'm coming in the lightest I've ever come in. That was a tell. He knew he was too heavy, and he knew where he needed to be. And I think that I saw a picture of him the other day. I think he's already lighter. I think he looks good. If Deion makes sure he keeps his weight in check, he can play another 5-6 years. He's that good. And the thing about Deion is he's not beat up. He doesn't have a bunch of injuries. He's available. He's always on the field playing. You look at it that way. He had the concussion stuff this year, but he's usually not dealing with something. And he's even at 80%, he's better than 90% of the other guys in the league. And so I love Deion. I'll be honest, full disclosure, Deion Dawkins is my favorite player on the team. I love Deion. I love unorthodox offensive lineman, and he's as unorthodox as they get. And I think he'll be fine, but his biggest issue is going to be as he gets older into the latter part of his career, he's got to really, really focus on his health and his body composition. He does that, he'll be fine.
Yeah, that's really good perspective.
I raised this with Bean. Is it possible they move him to guard? It's not this year because he got so heavy. Do you think that's realistic for Deion, or because they don't have a replacement obviously at left tackle this year? But do you think that's a realistic expectation if they move him inside in the next 2 years, maybe?
Yeah. The Philadelphia Eagles moved former Buffalo Bill great left tackle Jason Peters, the left guard, for about 3.5 hours. And Jason Taylor was like, or Jason Peters was like, deuces, I'm out. Those guys aren't that's not how they're built. It's the same thing they're having the same conversations in Santa Clara, California with Williams right now. Should we move Williams to guard? And Williams Trent Williams is like, no, I don't play guard. I'm a tackle. So he's going to play tackle until he's done and then probably check out. So I don't think we're at that point. I really don't think we're at that point. And I just honestly believe that it happens to all of us. Everybody goes through this, and he's had his moment, and he's not a manufactured big man. Okay. He is a big person. He's a big athlete. Always has been, always will be. He's got to make sure he keeps that body comp in check, and he'll be fine.
Yeah, I would agree with the prove it to me kind of year. But I mean, before they would move on or move him to a different position or move on from him, I mean, they've gone a long time with Allen at quarterback without having to worry about left tackle.
Well, I think the doomsday scenario is, okay, say we go into the season, say Corbett, something happens, he doesn't make it or he gets hurt. We try Alec Anderson, and Alec Anderson is just not where we need him to be. I think they would have to bring this guy in and really talk to him about it and say, look, this is what we're going to do. It won't be this way long term, but just understand for this season. And if there is a doomsday scenario, you take McGovern and you put him in left guard, and you take Cushenberry that's been starting in the NFL for many games at center, put him at center and go with it. Is that the preferred look? No, that's not why you brought Connor McGovern back. And it's a disservice to him if you did that to him, and you did it on purpose without telling him. So they didn't do that. But I'm just saying, if it hits the fan moment and you have to do something, that's probably the move. Not take Deion and move him inside and then play Grable at left tackle. All
right. So before we wrap this up here, just we've talked about receiver. You've made a legitimate case for offensive line. A lot of projections at edge. Where does linebacker fit in? Right, in terms of who they might take high, and I do feel like at some point safety is going to need to be addressed too.
Yeah, probably another safety. I think linebacker is something that can be picked a little bit later, because I don't think any of the early round guys are the style of linebacker that we need, unless you can convince somebody to let us trade up and get Sonny Styles, who I think is the best player in the draft. I mean, my goodness, a 6'5", 243-pound linebacker that was a safety. Come on now. Yeah. I mean, that's nuts. But, C.J. Allen's a guy that gets mocked a lot. 6'1", 235. Is he that guy? Don't really know. I mean, he's a physical, reliable middle linebacker. Is he the 26th pick overall? Some people feel he is. I mean, he's got really strong run defense ability, so maybe that is the guy, because we know that Bean likes backers. I don't think Jacob Rodriguez is that guy. I think Jacob Rodriguez would be a guy for McDermott if McDermott was around. I think the guy that everybody looks at right now is Jake Goldie, the guy from Cincinnati, 6'4", 240. I think he's a dude that everybody really likes. And, of course, Josiah Trotter, his dad played in the league a long time. He's a good player as well. But probably looking at more physical-type linebacker dudes as far as the draft goes. But I know which way I would go. I don't know if you guys picked the way that you would go in the draft, but I know what I would do. And shockingly, it's not pick Vega from Penn State. Although if he was there, I would take him in a heartbeat at left guard.
Golday is a player. Well, first of all, I talked to him at the Combine. I really liked the kid. He was seems like a great kid. I love him as a player, but your buddy Joe Marino, who I trust is a pretty good evaluator, he said the issue with him, though, is he spent most of the time as an edge rusher. Really? He wasn't really an off-ball linebacker in Cincinnati. That's not going to help the Bills too much.
When he was an off-ball linebacker, he started out as a slot corner. They played him at slot corner.
Right, that's what he said.
Yeah, they played him at slot corner. So he's kind of been a jack of all trades. Sonny Styles the same way, played safety and everything. But, you guys talk about figuring out the first round, and I think you're on to something. I mean, if you really want to look at Bean historically, if you really take a big look at the big picture of his drafts, he has gone to the well quite a bit at linebacker. It might be C.J. Allen. It might not be. Maybe it's somebody else, but that is a big possibility. But the thing I like about this defense, to me anyway, I think the pieces are a lot easier to find than McDermott's defense, especially in the back end. Okay, hear me out on this. Like, how many Taron Johnsons are out there? Like, how many how many slot corners are you going to find that are strong in the B gap in the run game, right?
Yeah.
How many of those guys are you going to find, right? Right. How many of the safeties are you going to find to do it the way he wants it done? How many of the, so how many middle linebackers are you going to find that are like undersized guys that can play rat in the hole coverage and run with routes, or like Matt Milano? And I always think that about Milano. Milano found lightning in a bottle. He got lucky. He got picked by the Bills, fell right into the perfect scheme for him as a linebacker, right? So I think it's harder to find guys in McDermott's offense or defense than this new defense that we have now. I think that a lot of these guys will transition well, but there are some specialty pieces that you have to have. And, as we get towards the end of this thing, one of those specialty pieces is where I'm going in the first round if he's there and I'm drafting. But then again, I'm not drafting.
You're holding up under your vest, right? You're going to hold that. You're going to hold that.
No, I'll tell you who it is. If I'm sitting there at 26 and Cade McDonald's sitting there, I pick him. Yeah. Big, fat, smelly, nasty, run-stopping two-gapping nose guards are not easy to find.
See, I'm on board with that because I don't think, no matter what Bean told me, I'm not on board with Deion Walker being a true nose. I don't think he's a true nose.
He's not a true nose. Here's the thing: this is so crazy about Deion Walker is everybody thinks because he's big that he's a nose. I'm like, Deion Walker is more of a lateral player than he is an anchor north-south player. He's a lateral guy. He's got a nose for the football. He's got a knack to find it and use his length down the line of scrimmage to go make plays. He's not a gap, B gap run stuffing guy. That's not what he does. So they've got to find a nose.
You know better than anybody. He's not going to be able to get leverage, Jerry.
No.
How is a 6'7" guy on the nose going to get leverage? They're going to get their hands on him.
6'7" guy that's a little stiff to begin with, right? Yeah. It's not going to happen. But he's got a knack for the footballs, Sal, and he makes a lot of plays. He'll jump backside with a big swim move, then what they call retrace. So say they're, the running plays going to the offense's right. He'll swim right, but then retrace back behind the line of scrimmage, behind the guy trying to block him and make plays. He does a lot of that stuff really well. His instincts are really good. He's just, he's got that back. He just kind of beat to death. And like you say, at 6'7", how much leverage can you have?
Well, you know what? What you say there, Jerry, and the way you're going with this, and I believe ESPN just mocked him to Buffalo as well. It brings me back, and I'll wrap it with this, but we had Vic Carucci and I had Bill Polian on. This was years ago. This was around the time that Ed Oliver got his contract extension, and the fan base was all up in arms because he hadn't been consistent enough and that sort of thing. And Polian's on with us on the show. And he named some of the great quarterbacks, Jim Kelly, Elway, Marino, right? Tom Brady. And he talked about the fact that, I think the quote was, you could send 2 heat-seeking missiles off of the edge, right? And these great quarterbacks aren't going to worry about it. But it's the disruption in the interior of the defensive line, right? Yeah. Whether it's stopping the run, what that does to an offense, or whether it's creating some pressure or whatever, where they can't set their feet or get the offense in rhythm that drives the greatest quarterbacks crazy. So I think that speaks to your point.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's kind of what McDermott tried to base his stuff on for quite a while. Compression, rush the outside, and let the inside guys go penetrate and make plays, right?
Yeah.
But if I was a GM of an NFL franchise, our fan base would hate me because I would be the most boring draft guy. They would hate me. I'll tell you what, we might be mid. Yep. We might be mid everywhere else on the field, but our front 7 and our 5 offensive linemen, we would be bad dudes. We would stop the run and we would run the ball, and everything else we'll figure out. But that's why, like, when I look at this and I look at the guys on this roster, I'm like, we don't have a nose guard, and there's a couple out there right now that are free agents that are premier type guys that we don't seem to be going to get. So I put that together as well. If you look at a guy like Cade McDonald, who I think is elite at that stuff, and then maybe even a Christian Miller if McDonald's not around, there's some guys that are there that I don't particularly like. You maybe get later, like a Dominique Orange, or somebody like that, or like a Chris McClellan from Missouri that can play nose. But if I'm going to 26 and that elite run stopping 2-gap nose is there, I'm sprinting to the podium with the card.
And Jerry, especially when you got two linebackers who weigh 225 and 230, right? I mean, you want a guy in the middle that could keep guys off them.
Amen. And I actually think Bernard's going to play much better this year than he did last year. I think it's going to free him up.
As long as he stays healthy, right?
Yeah, as long as he stays healthy, I think he'll free him up and he'll be back to his old tackle for loss type guy or whatever behind the line of scrimmage, because he'll shoot a bunch of gaps and all that, not having to worry about a bunch of pass coverage and everything like he did with this last defense. I think he's going to have a better year.
All right. Well, just like it was back in the day when we talked to him at his locker, Sal, he doesn't pull punches, does he? Doesn't hold back.
No.
Always lets us know how he feels.
Well, back in the day, Jerry usually gave me the stink eye when I walked over because
he would.
He didn't like the media too much back in the day.
No, I like the media. I had a stretch of media when we had these two people in the locker room at the same time that seemed to always be the center of attention for everything. I think you know who I'm talking about. One was kind of taller and skinny. The other one was short and thicker. Yeah. And that was when it got, you can only answer the same question about the same two people over and over again so many times. You get a little bit cranky. So,
I know he's not talking about me and you, Adam.
I know. No, absolutely. But I mean, you talk Flutie Johnson. I mean, just for a moment.
No, we ain't talking Flutie and Johnson.
The drama.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean,
I know.
Wow. I mean, well, I'm not going to go down that road. But I mean, Wade Phillips, as much as I loved him as a head coach and certainly as a coordinator, he let that situation get completely out of control. And I know ownership was involved with all of it and everything else. So
it was all there was more to it than you can imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you need 15 shows to get to.
One good thing for you guys, you didn't have to worry about what to write about that day.
No,
you knew what you're writing about, or you were talking about one or the other.
That filled up everything for a long time. All right, Jerry, we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Maybe we'll get you after the draft or whatever.
Yeah,
but before we wrap it up here, I want two things I need to do. One, FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show and others, including yours, Jerry, which I want to hear about in just a second. But Bills win total for this season has them at 10.5. They are third in terms of the Super Bowl odds, at least in terms of what FanDuel Sportsbook and Vegas is putting out there. So once again, they expect them to be contenders. I think that's where it's going to be, assuming this draft holds up and they hit some key spots. But I think it's going to be a divisional round or conference championship game. It's going to come down to a play or two, that type of thing, just as it did this past season. Didn't go Buffalo's way. But before we wrap it up, Jerry, tell us about what you've really excelled from a media perspective. Tell us what you're all involved with your show or shows.
We got a lot going on, but obviously Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network here on the Believe Network. Myself, former teammate and good friend of mine, John Fina, whose son Bruno has been invited out to Las Vegas for a 30 visit. So props to Bruno Fina.
Nice.
Former offensive lineman at Duke. So he gets to go to Vegas for a 30 visit. He'll be eligible for the draft this year. And Joe Miller, of course, we started this thing and we got shows on, 4 or 5 days a week, talking Bills football. My show's on Wednesday night. I actually started pairing up with the Western New York legend from XM Sirius Radio, Zig Fracassi. So Zig comes on with me. So we do a little bit together and it's been a good time. And, so, yeah, we're on Wednesday nights. We got a show Monday. John's Monday. We got another one Tuesday. We got one Sunday night. So, yeah, we had a couple more when the season starts as well.
All right. We'll look for it. Jerry, thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Maiorana, Jerry Ostroski, I'm Adam Benigni. This has been Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel.